Life and death, it's all a dance. Talking love and giving chance. Laughs and tears, we're here to share. Join us now, we're always there.
Hello, Noelle. How are you today?
Hi, Jenna. I'm fine. How are you?
Doing well.
Do you feel like I shout into the microphone?
No, but I did have somebody say that your voice they can hear a lot better than mine. So I'm like, should I be
Really?
shouting? Am I not like eating the mic enough?
Interesting, because my wife always tells me that I shout whenever I'm having conversations on the phone or on video chat. So I just want to make sure that I'm not shouting in your ear.
I don't feel that you're shouting at me. I am also Italian, so the way you communicate is like an everyday conversation with my family, so we're good.
Perfect. Who are we having on today, Jenna?
Today, we are having Cara on, and I would like for you to give a little bit of background information or why Cara is joining us today.
Yes. So we are having Cara on, and Cara is a friend of mine. I know you know her as well.
Yes.
And Cara and I probably became closest whenever she unfortunately was in the process of losing her mom to cancer. So we're going to talk to her a little bit about that and also talk to her about some things that have happened to her since then and how she has navigated all of it. So I'm very excited for this conversation. It should be a good one.
So am I.
There she is.
Hey,
How are
can you
you?
hear me?
Oh, yeah. So, Cara, why don't you start us off with just giving us a little bit of your background and history and things like that?
Sure. I am now a 40-year-old woman. I will say that proudly because I know 40 is like an icky number, but hey, we made it. I made it,
Yep.
and I'm happy about it. I am a 40-year-old woman. I am semi-athletic and keep trying to tap into that space. It's not really working. I have been working in basically, customer service type of serving areas of my career in the last, 25 years. I've been doing, assistant type of stuff. I'm now an senior executive assistant. I really love my job. I love taking care of people. I love doing what I do, per usual. All the semantics and politics and things that get into it are there and nowhere, no matter where you go. But this is a really nice place to go and be around the people that I'm around. So it's been nice. Other than work, I have a wife. We've been married for, it will be 7 years next month.
That's
We
That's
will all,
crazy.
crazy.
I
Congratulations.
know, right?
That's awesome.
Thank you. We will also be together, or we were together 7 years in December because we did the lesbian U-Haul and got married 2 months after meeting each other.
That's,
Um,
but look, here you are 7 years later.
Exactly.
Listen, and life has lifed us. I mean, life has happened. A short while after we got together, we bought a house. We moved a whole hour away from where we were living before. We bought that house, and a couple months after that, my mom died. I was traveling, taking care of her. Then, a few months after that, not even a year into our new home, the pandemic hit. And then all of the challenges that came from there. Then I was diagnosed. We lost our dog, da 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 da, life. But we're here serving, striving. Not sure that we're always thriving, but we're definitely we're definitely on the same page of just continuing to want each other and continuing to want our future. So I think that that's a positive. Um, we have 3 dogs. We have a Maltese Shih Tzu, Duncan. We have a black pug, Crosby, who it's his world. We just live in it. And we have a Weimaraner lab mix, Milo. Duncan is 14, Milo is 10, and Crosby is going to be 5. And so, other than that, we don't have any children. No two-feeded children, no two-feeded children coming, no human children coming either. That kind of changed along with my diagnosis and the pandemic and things like that. So now we're just collecting four-legged friends and
Okay,
kids.
nothing wrong with that. So you just gave a lot of information, which is fantastic. I am literally like, okay, now I need to know. Like, I guess we're going in the direction of relationship a bit, but now I'd love to know with each step when you said about your mother passing away and
Sure.
diagnosis of breast cancer and losing your pet and the pandemic, all those things. What do you think was the most challenging thing for the two of you? And what do you think you guys kind of the conclusion you guys came to as to why you've now been together for 7 years through all of that?
I would say that we weren't always on the same page as we were going through it. My mother's relationship and mine was very complex. I wasn't even talking to her through her breast cancer diagnosis. I would check in on her every once in a while after she let me know that she was diagnosed, but I just couldn't bring myself to be involved. And then I got a call that she may have had a year left, and she kind of lied to me and told me that wasn't true, but it was. She went on a cruise and came back, and she was deteriorating. The cancer had spread to her bones, and it was just like the start of the end. So um, I, for myself, went and became her caretaker. I had the mentality that if I could look back on this situation and understand that I did what I did for me, then hopefully I would be okay. I wasn't, even though I had that mentality and I understood that I was doing what I was doing for me. It was incredibly difficult. Her death opened up a big Pandora's box of my childhood trauma and my relationship with her. While she was, dying and I was taking care of her for 3 months, my mom was an alcoholic. So she drank all day long as she was on like 2,400 milligrams of morphine plus
Mm.
and on all the other medications that she was on. So it was just incredibly difficult to look back on, because I think I'm the type of person that when something is kind of rised, I have to rise to the occasion. I don't really know what the hell I'm doing. I'm just doing it.
Right,
And I don't really have the choice. I don't think that during that time I understood everything that was going on, and because of that, Haley had a different perspective. She saw that I was going down there and I wasn't being my mother's daughter. I was being everyone's caretaker. I was getting everyone alcoholic drinks. I was doing laundry. I was cleaning. I was cooking. I was the one being used. And it wasn't even for the mere healing of just being with my mom.
right.
So, because of what I was going through and just having to survive and get through it, and her having the perception that she had, after my mom died, I had rose-colored glasses on for a hot minute. I gave her a lot more props than she probably was due, and that's something I struggle with still.
But
Um,
how do you not that's I think that sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Cara, but
no,
that must be one of the hardest things is, like because I think anybody, whenever somebody's gone, like, it's human nature to want to remember, like, the good, right? Like, you don't wanna look back and remember the bad, and I constantly have to remind myself this, and obviously, I was lucky to have a good relationship with my parents, and I know not everyone is, but there are still times where I will be like, "Oh, it would be perfect if they were here," and I think about it, I'm like, "No, it wouldn't." Like, it
I
it's
I
not.
still struggle with that too, man.
Yeah.
I really do. And that thought is something that unless you've gone through this, I don't think that you understand it, because everyone's like, "Oh, you lost your mom." And I'm like, "I'm okay." Like I wasn't, but I'm okay.
Yeah.
Um it's hard because they're your parents. They're the
Mhm.
people who were supposed to love us unconditionally. They're the people who are supposed to have our backs unconditionally, and when they fail to show up that way, it changes you. You become a different person. So post her death, I went through that. I went through those rose-colored glasses months, and I felt sorry for my mom. And that kind of put a wedge between Haley and I, because of the way that she saw that I was down there and the way that I saw it differently. She wanted me to come home multiple times, and I was like, how can you not understand that, like, this is the only place I need to be?
Right.
And that's how I felt. And now my mom was gone 5 years this past December. It is just fascinating, the time frame from post and prior.
Mhm.
You feel like all this time has just been, I don't want to say slow, but just life living life, and then your parent dies or your parents die, and it's like, it's just that life is so different, and there really isn't, I don't know, anyone to fall back on.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just different, and I feel like the years just go so much faster.
I agree.
It doesn't feel like it was 5 years ago. But you get it though, like, and it goes so fast. And like during the pandemic, losing somebody during the pandemic, I don't know if the pandemic years were real even
Yeah.
Yeah,
because it
no,
just screwed the timeline up so much.
it
But it
definitely did.
it was definitely really hard for her and I. We had to see eye to eye there, and that took a little bit of time, and she had to find, the space to allow me to be what it is that I needed to be. But it came with some challenges because of the way that she saw things and I did.
And I'm sure she's looking at it in the perspective, and I believe Noelle and I had this conversation when Neil was on, her brother, that she's probably trying to protect you. She wanted to
Yeah.
care for you. She wanted you to be okay so badly, and that was her whole intention in the way she was acting. But you viewing it and where you were was kind of like, how do you not understand this? Like, who
Yes,
cares
ma'am.
how I'm being treated at this moment? I'm with my mom, and that's what I'm supposed to be doing. Yeah.
100%. And after I was able to hear her, because I couldn't hear
Right.
her,
Right.
while I was grieving. So once I got to a part of my grief journey that I was able to hear her actually say those things to me and validate them, we were back on the same page, and that really helped.
What you just said about the fact that you didn't hear her or you weren't able to hear her at a certain point, like, that's such, an understated idea, I think, that happens, like, for so many people, and I think back at, relationships that I had that didn't work out, and I don't know that I would've been able to sustain a solid relationship through both of those losses, and I think it's
No.
just when you are able to, it takes a hell of a lot of work because, like you said, it changes you, and I think they're also, like, it's important too to give props to her because of the fact that, it wasn't her loss, but it also was in a sense because there was a part of you that she also lost, like, because you changed, you know what I mean? Because we all do.
Snaps to that. Yeah, snaps to that. I don't know if you guys have ever read The Body Keeps the Score.
Yes, I
If you
actually have it right in front of me.
read it, it is
It is fantastic.
so absolutely fantastic. It will allow you to understand yourself and others in such a way that you will have much more compassion and empathy for yourself and others. Because you're not like, what the hell's that person's problem? You're like, oh, it must be this. It must be this trauma, or it could be this. You all of a sudden start, taking people down with it. But I don't think people understand that when you go through trauma like that, you change chemically.
Oh,
It's
yes.
not that your emotions change, you change chemically, and you have to work very hard to get those chemical wires back to each other.
And that's the crazy thing too, like, is, you know, we do tend to sort of group it under one umbrella, like, "Oh, I've lost someone, you've lost someone," whatever, like, and you kind of have that camaraderie, and I know for myself, like, that
Hmm.
has pulled me close to people more times than I can say, because I think there is that sense of, like, compassion on a different level, but when you start to really break it down, like, every loss is so different, and you losing your mom who there was a relationship, it was the could have beens and the what would have beens, and,
Yep.
that is also, and that is a whole other layer of grief of, like, you know, what if it were different? So how do you balance remembering your mom and, like, honoring the fact that that was the role that she played and she was your mom, and grieving that person, like, what you had hoped that you could have had?
Yeah. Honestly, I was in therapy every week for 4 years. It was very needed. Whether or not it was the right therapy, I don't know, but it was a place for me to dump all of my emotions and what was going on in my head. But in order for me to heal, I really had to dive into understanding my mom. So I went through her friends and our family and understood her childhood better, some of the decisions she had made early on in her life, and being who I am and self-aware and in the therapeutic field of language and understanding that, I was able to then find compassion and feel bad for my mom. I feel like we go back and we look at just socially the generations and how they worked. Like my grandmother could never leave because, back then women couldn't do what women do now, so you had to stay, and then my mom was then forced into being like the older daughter of six boys, and you can imagine what that's like back in the 50s. So then you fast forward into the nature of the generations then, she had so much trauma. She was, do this, do that, don't talk to your mom, got punched in the face for it, like she had a lot of trauma and she was met with get married or get out of the house. And so, she was 18 getting married. And I can't imagine what that must have been like and having the life that she had where like she was never really the focus. And understanding all of that, it made me understand more of her as an adult and as my mother and the way she showed up and why she showed up that way. And honestly, why she couldn't show up in other ways. And it really helped me. It really helped me understand that it wasn't me. For so
Yeah.
long, I thought, like, how could you not want to be your daughter's best friend?
Yeah.
I
Right.
wasn't an easy child, but I didn't also have the nurturing mother that a lot of people get. I think that hand in hand, we just were oil and vinegar, or oil and water, rather. I ended up just having to find compassion for her so that I could let go of the resentment, which I still, honestly, I say that I've done that, but it still creeps up every once in a while, and I have to remind myself.
I just give you so much credit though for putting yourself out there and giving yourself that time and space to get to that point. Um,
Thank you.
I always kind of look at it as like I can't imagine myself 4 years ago or 5 years ago living in that space for the rest of my life. Like, not putting the work in, not looking towards other people and support, and living that way, because truly would that be living, where you're every
Mhm.
day just feeling like, "What did I do? What did she do?" Like, the constant, like, whys.
It was really difficult because my grief happened during the pandemic and we were isolated.
That silence and, like, I think a lot of people like, I know for myself during COVID, I mean, my dad was a functioning alcoholic most of my life, and I always said, "Oh, like, I just would never drink by myself," and I found myself during COVID, like,
Yeah.
every other day going up and getting, like, that I was convincing myself that hard seltzer was keeping me hydrated, and so I would go up and, like,
Oh, you
buy
did? I
White
forgot
Co
about
Yeah,
that.
I mean,
I forgot
I
about the hard
literally I was
seltzers.
drinking by myself daily when because I was working, like, on campus at CMU, and I would get home and be like, "Oh, what a day." Like,
I remember the
meanwhile
hard seltzers.
yeah, but and the slushes, the alcoholic slushes,
Oh,
Slushes,
yeah.
I did get the slushes. The
and
I did
I eventually had to kinda check myself and be like, "This is not normal," and it got to a point where I was like, one day I was driving home, I was like, "Oh, maybe I won't go today to get anything," and then I'm like, "No, no, no, I'll go today, I won't go tomorrow," and then I was like, "Okay, like, this is
Yeah,
becoming an issue."
When
This
you're rationing with yourself,
Yeah,
that's the issue. Yeah,
yeah.
for
yeah,
sure.
I did.
But
It
yeah,
It's
wasn't
funny
and
because
that
a
was a lot
a
of
lot of people went that way. I went
yeah,
the opposite way. I kinda quit drinking.
same.
I'm there with you
Like
now.
all natural, walking, nature.
Yeah. Mask on.
Yes, mask on, watching Schitt's Creek over and
Oh,
over
good
again.
one. That
Yes.
I think that one saved us all through the pandemic with Schitt's Creek.
Like you said, Kara, I think and we joke about it, obviously, a lot of people did lose their lives in that pandemic, so I don't
Right.
wanna
Mhm.
discredit that either, but it was a really interesting time for anyone that had any trauma to work through. Jenna,
Sorry,
why are you
there's
laughing?
fire alarm going off.
I heard that.
I'm fine, I'm good. Keep
Is your
going.
house on fire?
I mean, I don't smell smoke, so I think I'm
Should you
She's
fine.
like,
maybe
"It could
check?
be."
No, it stopped. I'm good.
Oh, good, okay.
It was just testing you to see if you were paying attention.
Were you
I was.
absent for the fire drills at school?
I wanted to remain on camera, otherwise I would have stopped, dropped, and rolled, but you didn't see me doing that because the fuzz in the background, so I remained here for the sake of our show, Noelle.
That's great.
Yeah,
Sacrifices. I
thank
mean,
you.
MVP right there.
Thank you, Cara.
So, Kara, how long after losing your mom were you then diagnosed? I'm trying to remember the timeline. 15 months.
Because of the way that my grief manifested into my body, I was able to find my cancer early. If I would have waited 4 more years, here I am now 40 getting my first mammogram.
Yep.
I don't know what I would have had. I was already graded when they found it. So it would likely have been, in my lobules, in my lobule area or into my breast tissue. So I just remain incredibly grateful that I found it. I had to go through it and it is what it is, but man, I'm here to live and tell about it.
How can I ask how you did like, what sent you to the doctor to have it checked out?
Sure. Truth be told, I was like losing my body. I had zero control of it. And I just got to a place that I was like, what the hell is going on with me? I don't understand. And so I was very close with my PCP. My PCP is a godsend, Dr. Mariola Joswiak. shout out to you, because honestly, without her, with a lot of my depression and anxiety episodes and going through the things that I have gone through, health wise, I don't know that I would be here without her. She listened to me, she cared for me, she gave me things that I needed. So when I called her and I said, listen, I've had this pain in my breast, my right breast, in my like nipple area for a couple weeks now, and I've had this pain before. And I said, but this isn't like going away. And she was like, well, it could be hormonal. Like, let's look at it. I had very fibrocystic breasts as it
Mhm.
was. So let's monitor it. So we watched it for another 6 months, and the pain never went away, not once. And like I said, I've had that before, and it would come and go kind of around my time of the month. But this was persistent. So she's like, okay, I'll send you. They sent me for a mammogram. The guy who did my mammogram, he said, I want to see you every 6 months for the next 2 years, and we're going to alternate MRIs and mammograms. Okay, cool. Thank you. Appreciate that. I want to get baseline images on you, make sure that we're taking care of you. Very much appreciated. I go back in 6 months. It's April 2021 at that point, I think. And I get my MRI done. Well, my MRI came back and it showed two suspicious spots. So they're like, we're going to have to do a biopsy. And I'm like, okay. So I go in and we do an MRI guided biopsy. And I have to lay on this table face forward. My boobs kind of go in this little breadbasket type of thing. And, you know, honestly, it really wasn't too crazy or too painful or anything. I was pretty numb, really just went through the experience. But at the end of it, it came back, and I knew what it was going to come back, that it was breast cancer. I knew right away what I was going to do. I was going to have a double mastectomy if they were going to let me, and they let me.
So did you I'm trying to remember, you didn't have to go through any treatment, right? You didn't have to do chemo or anything
No,
because
I'm super lucky because of how early they caught it. My treatment was my surgery and having a double mastectomy, and I had a lymph node removed. I didn't have to take any tamoxifen, any hormone therapy, no radiation, no chemo. If I would have kept them and did a lumpectomy, I would have been on tamoxifen for 6 years, and I would have had to have 18 rounds of radiation.
Wow.
was that something because your mom also had breast cancer, obviously, was your mom sick for a while before? Did she have
3 years.
multiple 3 years?
I mean, depending on what type of personality you wanted to pick up, it depends. But
I'm trying
she,
to remember because I don't know why I was thinking when you were talking about it that she had had a few, like, scares or did she go through
during that
treatment
time,
before?
no, it was during that time.
Okay.
Her cancer was just really hard on her, and she almost
Okay.
died twice during two of her surgeries, and one time one of the chemo treatments almost killed her. So it was just really, really rough on her.
Was it
But
something that you thought about, like, as early as her treatment?
mm,
Like, that if it would happen
way
to you
before
that you would've
then,
really?
my dad's grandmother died when I was 5 of breast cancer.
Wow.
And my grandfather on my mom's side had breast cancer. Two of my aunts on both my grandmother and my grandfather's side had breast cancer, both on my mom's side. So I had a feeling my whole life I was going to get breast cancer. It was just a matter of when, not an if.
Wow.
And I don't know. I just have this, feeling that the universe was like, you've been through enough shit. You're probably going to go through more shit, but like, let me give you this shit now to deal with so that you can deal with the other shit later.
Right.
So, whatever reason it is that I had to go through what I went through now, I just am so incredibly grateful.
And you have literally taken that shit and actually literally run with it because 'cause aren't you training for a half marathon now?
I am.
Yes,
Yes.
This
everybody
will
in these half marathons.
this will be my second one since my surgeries.
That's amazing.
What?
Yeah, my first one I did not this past year, the year before in 2023. And all I wanted to do was finish. That was my only goal because I had lost so much of my body during my recovery. I lost so much muscle mass. It took me 6 months of lifting weights just before I could start training for that marathon and running. So, I just had so much work to do, and all I wanted to do was finish, and I finished. I realized a very short time ago that I'm not eating enough protein in my diet, like 20 grams maybe a day. Girl,
How do you do it
we
though?
gotta up it. We
But
gotta up
how?
it.
I know I'm
I
trying.
I'm purposely drinking protein shakes. I'm purposely eating like high protein yogurts. I'm purposely eating like when I do like a hoagie, I get all the meats and I take half the bread off and I eat all that meat.
See, I do that other than the meat because I only eat chicken. I don't eat any other meat. But like I do the protein stuff, like the
Hmm.
protein.
Drink 90 milligrams of protein shakes a day.
Oh boy.
But
I
it
don't
helps.
know.
So now I'm running this half to beat my PR. My PR is 2:19:19. So we'll
That's
see.
I believe
amazing.
PR is personal record, Noelle, in case you
Yes.
didn't know that.
Thanks, Jenna.
I ran I ran I ran a relay once, and I remember
A
You
that.
want to,
relay.
I don't even have a PR. There's no
why,
PR in my life.
why don't you come run the half with me?
There you go, Jen.
Yeah.
No.
I lift. I'm more of like a strength, like lift.
Cara,
Yes.
did you have any, because obviously it was something was it a pretty, like, straight and narrow decision for you? Like, was there a grief process for you in that surgery, like, where you felt a loss of
Yeah.
sense of self at all, or was it pretty straightforward for
Hmm.
you?
I really liked my boobs.
You
Everyone
had
else really
great
liked my
boobs.
boobs too.
Yeah.
Everyone saw my boobs. I did a lot of things that I didn't necessarily think that I would need to be doing, but did them just in case I'd look back and regret it, because there is certain things I do regret not doing. But I very memorialized my boobs. I made a mold of them so
Mhm.
that it's a silicone mold and I can just make more molds out of it so that like I have my boobs. I was going to make everyone a paperweight. Actually, that's a lie. I was going to make everyone a candy dish out of my boobs. And then I realized I didn't know how to do that. So then I was gonna make a
It's fine.
paperweight, and then I
I think
never
you're
did that either.
Cara, I think you're slacking a little bit. We definitely could find out how to do that.
I
You could
still
even
have
do
the
like a ghost
molds.
moment and do it with clay and, like, play the
Listen,
music, and you could be like I could turn the wheel and you're, like, making
it's already molded. I just gotta put the plaster
oh,
inside of
we
it,
can
and I can
so
just
do
start
this.
selling this shit on
We're doing
Etsy.
this. We're plan a time. We're doing it, and
I
they're coming on
did
the
make I did make one paperweight, and I made it for my therapist, and I painted it gold. So she has my gold boob on her bookshelf somewhere where she lives.
That is amazing.
right?
So I did everything I could to kind of like bring the positive into it. I don't know if you guys know Victoria Bradley. She is an amazing, amazing Pittsburgh artist. She doesn't live in Pittsburgh anymore, but she's from here. She paints beautiful portraits of women and their bodies and in different elegant forms of, poses. And I've loved her art for so long. So I reached out to her and asked her to commission a picture of mine that I sent to a friend who asked me to send her a picture of my boobs to show the guys that she worked with. So I took a picture of my boobs and I have my middle finger up on the side of it. Well, I thought, wow, what a great
Yeah,
picture to have and like make that my like essence, but like
love that.
motto of like, fuck you. Like, you're not coming
Yeah,
after me. Like, I'm coming after you. And like, this isn't going to be my life. It's not going to define me. Like, I'm going to get over this. And I didn't have any other way to be but positive. But, the day of my surgery, I took, last minute pictures. I held myself in the shower and I thanked them for everything that they gave me. I thanked them for providing the fun and the and the events that they were part of.
And the
I thank
screenshotted
them,
Snapchats.
all of them. Be careful if you open up a Snapchat for me. Well, now I don't have nipples, so it really wouldn't matter. But um, I really gave myself like gratitude, and also because my boobs were not what they used to be during the pandemic. That something happened, and they were like. So I was really ready to get rid of them anyway.
yeah, I mean, they were just preparing themselves for departure, and
Mhm.
that's okay.
But I would say the grieving process for that didn't really happen until after my implants were placed, and that was like 9 months later. And after that happened, it was kind of like the only way that I can describe this that you or maybe anybody else may understand is like if you're losing somebody, like they're dying and you're their caretaker, and once they die, it's like everything is deafeningly silent
Yep.
or loud, rather. Everything is definitely loud, but it's silent. And it's just really hard to kind of like be left with the circling of your thoughts and the echoing of it all. So that's really when my grief landed on me and I really sunk into a very bad deep depression. Took me like almost a year to get out of it.
So, Cara, I don't know if you know this, but my motivation when I originally started doing my sex education program and my life coaching stuff, I was doing it primarily because I had seen a lot of my friends, too many of my friends, go through breast cancer. And
Wow.
see the way that they reacted with their body changing and just, trying to remain positive and everything else, but they're not being that support there and that recognition for just how much you're losing by that change because it's not something you chose to do. It's something that was
Yeah.
chosen for you.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
that's why I actually went into the program because I just hated the idea that like PT, OT, all the other therapies were there and available, but that specific therapy for these specific women or anyone else that have gone through any kind of like men with testicular cancer or whatever it may be, their sexuality changes, their relationship with themselves
Mhm.
and other people change so much. And I wanted to be that person to be able to support them through all of that and offer that support. I think it's, and I'm saying this now just because it's so needed, I feel like, that I'm hoping this puts a message out between what you're saying, what I'm saying, and just like look into this, people. Like this needs to be there. And there are some people out there now doing it and stepping
Mhm.
up. And I encourage anybody going through what you went through to look for someone specific that has studied that and what happens mentally and physically and all of the things, and that is aware of how that progress looks because it's hard with just a
Mhm.
therapist. And therapy is, my favorite thing. I love therapy. I love coaching. I love
Me too.
therapy. Done it forever. But they're not all trained to deal with that. Just the same
Mhm.
way, Noelle's not writing a book about raising kids yet because she hasn't been
I
through
am.
it. I mean, not okay, maybe you are. Anyway, not that I can, like, as me saying, like, I have been through it, I've been through my own traumas, but it's more of just seeing what they went through and having that empathy and just wanting to help and be that support.
Listen, if you have not incorporated yourself or sent you to a lot of the local breast cancer organizations around here, let's work together and make sure that you are available because that right there, specifically in that space, is so needed. I can't, unless you're in that space, you do not understand. And there is a language and an unspoken understanding being around other breast cancer survivors that it's just you feel so validated and seen. And it's also because of the way that we're dropped off back into this normalcy of life.
Yep,
And there's a great poem that I'll share with you. I do not remember it off the top of my head right now, but I'll send it to you guys. And it basically just states like, and now we're back to school, and now we're back to home, and now we're back to this, and now we're back to that. But like, we're not ourselves. We're not whole. We're not who we used to be. And we're just left literally is what it feels like. So what you're doing is I can't even put into words how incredibly powerful and important it is for any survivor, any cancer patient at all, just to have somebody to go to, especially when they're returning to the normal life, and I use air quotes because you're never normal again. Um that was the hardest part. It was like, "Okay, well, here's your new boobs,"
right,
which you don't get new boobs. These boobs aren't great, PS, but, like, "Here's your new boobs. Here's you're all done with treatment." Little quick slap on the ass, and then you're back into life, and it's like, "How do I do this? How do I
right,
navigate? How do I understand what I've just been through? How do
right.
I, uh, you know, understand my emotions through it?" And I think, honestly, because I didn't have that is why I fell so hard into my depression, is because I was so optimistic through my whole treatment and just pushing through, pushing through, pushing through, especially butting up against my mom's, death and that grief. I just kept pushing through. And that was when the silence hit me that it was like, nah, girl, you're going to feel it. You're going to hear it. You're going to live it. You're going to go through it. And that's what I did.
I have a question for you. So, when you did get your new boobs put in, did that make you feel almost worse, like less validated because now from the outside you appear to be normal and fine and that nothing has changed to anybody else who just might see you? Did that
Mhm.
change at all like with the implants?
Mhm. It's funny because a lot of the people that I work with never even knew. Like, some people just recently found out, like, later this past year at a work meeting when I was like, "Oh, after my surgeries," they're like, "Oh, what surgeries did you have?" And I've worked with these people closely for the last 6.5 years. And that's due to me and due to the, competency of this business. But um, I would say that because of the lack of feeling, and I don't think a lot of people understand just not having the sensations here. It's not just sexual, like having nipples and having feelings in your breast. It's not sexual. It's here I am sitting at this desk. I'm leaning forward. This edge of this desk is completely in my boobs, and I cannot feel that.
Mm.
And I could lean harder and I still can't feel it. I could touch something hot, something cold, something sharp, and I would never feel it. What I also have to learn to adjust my senses to is when I hug people, because I love hugging people, not in like a creepy way, but like I'm a very emotional person. And when I like you, I like you. When I love you, I love you. And you feel it. I make sure that you understand it. You feel it, you hear it, all those things. And like there's a lot of that sensation that you don't understand that you feel here with people, that you connect with people here. And so I would say that, that adjustment has been interesting.
I love that you're saying this because I do feel like so many people don't understand that, and maybe because they've never had to go through it. So the average person, or male, female, if they haven't had to go through that or haven't had a personal experience with somebody, you just assume, oh, they put new boobs in and everything's the same and we're moving on and
Yeah.
everything's
What's your
great.
problem? You got perky
Right?
new boobs for the rest of
That's
your life.
and
Like, what's your
honestly, I've
deal?
I've actually heard people say that before. Like, "What is the big deal? You now have the boobs you wanted before, blah, 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 blah," like that, and it's just, like, infuriating, and it isn't all sexual, and I love that you said that too, because when I talk to people in general, when I'm working with anyone, whether it be through a
Mhm.
divorce, and I say that I'm a sex educator, it goes straight to, like, sex. I'm like, "Do you understand?"
No.
That is like the end of what we're talking about. Like right now, it's about the relationship with yourself and the intimacy with
Yeah.
yourself and how you feel. So I love that you brought that up and made that very clear. Like it's not always about sex. Like they're not
And
there just for sex. There's so much more.
well, guess what? After they're gone, there's nothing sexual about them because you can't feel anything.
Right,
You know,
right.
at this point in time, the sexiest that they ever get is when Haley goes outside to shovel and she comes back in and needs to warm her hands up. She puts them on my boobs. That's about as sexy as that they get
It's
now.
fantastic. I just think it's great that you brought those things up because I think a lot of people don't understand that. And a lot of people are afraid to talk about it. And I'm glad that you are not and you're able to bring that awareness to people.
Thank you. I would say that if anyone's listening that has anyone going through that in their life, how disrespectful it is to say that to somebody. Well, you got new boobs.
Right.
It is so invalidating, so demoralizing. It makes people feel so small. And it is just not the way to do it. It's like looking at someone, a woman, and being like, oh, when you do, and she is not pregnant. It's
Right.
that kind of respect that you need to have because it's not getting new boobs. Believe me, I have had my boobs now for 2022, I think is when I had them in. So it'd be almost 2 years, 3 years I'll have them in. And every other day, if not maybe every day, I think about getting them out and going flat
Really.
because of the uncomfortability that I have, because I can't find a bra that fits me right, because, of this or that, or, I'm in a bathing suit and I don't really look as full or as rounded as everyone else, or, it's a lot more complex after that and a lot more of figuring your body out again
Right.
as you're healing,
Well, and
so it's
Carrie,
just
I know you were like sort of joking, but like you had said, "Oh, I had great boobs," but like when that is part of like I don't want
yeah.
to say how you identify because I know that like that sort of doesn't give you the credit that you deserve, but like when that was something that you were proud of or that you were confident in and then all of a sudden, you are looking at, okay, I want to do something that will be similar to what I'm used to and then realizing
Mhm.
sort of the downsides. It's really interesting to hear you say that.
Well, and to compare in that nature of, trying to get back to like what I was, I went into my surgical office and one of my first appointments, I went to show her that picture that I was telling you guys about with the middle finger. And she didn't even look at it. She literally pushed my hand away and said, "You need to get that out of your mind right now. You're never going to look like that again." And so that, along with all of the feelings and the uncomfortability, the sensations of nerves trying to reconnect and all of those things that you go through, was just like a whole nother thing to digest, was that like I will never look like this again.
That is so infuriating to me on so many levels,
So
like,
many.
so infuriating. Like, that's the kind of moment where I'm like, "I wish I could have been there with you." Like, I wish I could have been there with you and said to
I
that
was
person, like, "Do you
alone.
have
It
any
was during the
idea?"
pandemic.
That's so awful. That's so upsetting to me. I'm sorry you went through
And
that.
me too. Me too. And it was during the pandemic, so I was all alone. I mean, my one of my first appointments, Haley was on FaceTime, and it just, people just don't understand it. And I'm very glad to hear that you're doing what you're doing and in the space that you want to do it in, because I can't explain just how incredibly powerful and important that is for people.
Yeah,
Like,
it's just it's
we
very
talk about it
upsetting.
all the time. We talk about it all the time. I'm very involved with some of the local breast cancer organizations. I'm actually going to be interviewing next week to be on one of the local boards, and I just can't tell you how much that specific conversation is said within that group, is that we are just left to our own devices after that, and it's hard. It's really, really hard. Yeah. It just, I feel like the more that we understand people, the more compassionate that we can be. It's not just lead with kindness anymore. It's like lead with understanding.
Yep, I agree, and I'm so glad you're doing all this, and I love every time
Thank
you
you.
post something, I try to share as much as possible.
I
Um,
see that. Thank you so
I
much.
do, I just it's so important to me because, like I said, I've had very, very good friends of mine, 2 of which passed away, and 2 of them who are still here, well, you included 3 of them that are still here, but the 4 were my immediate, like, immediate friends, like, in our friend
Yeah.
group, which is just unbelievable to me, and for me, I'm like, to not do something would just
Mhm.
that wasn't even an option. So for you to be doing this, even if it's difficult for you to be doing this, your voice matters and people are listening.
Well, and like, to show us three as an example, like we've all been through traumatic events. And I think it's all in the matter of like not just who you are, but how you respond to those events. And, since I've been through what I have been through, it has catapulted me into a giving space, into an education space of not only really healing myself in this breast cancer world of what I've gone through, but other women. And so, like, I'm here and I'm safe in my health, in my body, and in my life because of early detection. And I will forever die on that mountain, letting everyone know that every month, every day, you should be feeling yourself, knowing you're normal, knowing you're understanding. Because at the end of the day, it's not healthcare that's going to save your life. It's you. It's you, sis. You're the one who's going to sit here and be like, no, this is what's wrong with me, and you're going to fix it. And the way healthcare is going nowadays, you really have to be your own advocate. But it's, look at how we've all responded in a way of like, okay, it happened, but what can I do about it? And
Yes.
here's what I'm gonna do about it. Noelle's writing a book. You've become a life coach. I'm seeking opportunities and taking advantage of the opportunities that I'm given. Last year I was invited by my work to throw out the first softball at the Congressional Annual Breast Cancer. It's Young Survivors Coalition annual softball event with Congress down in DC.
That's
I got
awesome.
really, really sick. I was not able to go. I had
Oh,
pneumonia. And
No,
so
that's
I
awful.
wasn't, yes, I wasn't able to go, but I'm hopefully going to have another chance at it this year. But like, I've been putting myself out there more and more of just sharing educated information so that people are like, oh, here's another boob post. Well, guess what? You read it and you're going to think about it.
Cara, I feel like we could
Noelle,
have 12 other episodes.
let's
Um,
go.
I know we're gonna have to have some more, but we always like to end our episode with a glimmer, which is the opposite of a trigger. Jenna,
Duh.
do you have a glimmer?
Okay, this is my glimmer. I'm gonna bring my glimmer right with what we just did. And, Cara, I love that you are on here and because of our conversation today, I've been able to think about my friends and how much I love them,
Mhm.
and just reminding me how important it is to keep on my path on days that are can be difficult, and there's a reason. Um, and you make me incredibly proud what you're doing. You honestly
Oh,
do.
thank
So I'm
you.
just happy that I was able to connect with you on here again.
Cara, do you want to share a glimmer or do you want me to share mine?
You go first.
Okay, guys.
Oh,
I
jeez.
ate not just my first, but my second persimmon in my life today. I've never
They're
had a
so good.
persimmon. They're
Wait, did you
so
just say they're
good.
so good? You've had
Yeah.
one?
Yeah.
What are they?
It looks like a tomato, sort of,
Tastes
like a
like a
big one.
pear.
Wait a second. It's a little small potato. Oh, no,
No,
tomato
no,
that
like a
tastes
it's
like a
like a
pear.
They
tomato.
can be big
It's like a tomato, and it tastes like cinnamon. I
with like a
don't know.
pear texture.
Oh, so good. So I
I had it
ugh,
for the first time in Arizona and I didn't know what it was. And I was
so
with one of
good.
my foodie friends and she told me what it was. And now I was like, okay, I like these. I like these. And they come in
Okay,
like
well, then I
little,
expect you to bring me one, Cara, whenever we meet.
girl, I got you covered. They have them at Trader Joe's.
It
Oh,
just
do
reminded me
they?
though that, like,
Mhm.
there are still fruits that I have not tried, and
I'm
I
trying that fruit. I'm going to Trader Joe's tomorrow, and I'm getting a
yeah.
persimmon, just so I can say I ate a persimmon.
Try your persimmons dipped in honey.
Oh, that
Oh,
sounds great, but they also call them Sharon fruits here, and I'm not sure who Sharon is, but
who is what?
listen,
Sharon the Karen of England.
probably. I don't know. By the
I've learned
but
so much in this episode.
I know.
Um, my glimmer is that over the course of my existence, the last 5 years of what life has brought to me, I have kept having this mindset that I know this sounds kind of crazy because like you can't make things happen unless you try, right? You got to like actually put the effort to it. But I just kept having this mentality that like I keep being told from a lot of people that I should be a therapist, that I give like really good help sound advice, and I've often thought about even becoming a life coach, but honestly I'm very lazy and I haven't looked into it. I just keep giving people free advice. So but throughout that process, this process, I have kept saying to myself like, if I'm meant to be in a space and hold, people's attention at a place that I can make a difference, doors will keep opening for me and I will find the place that I'm supposed to be, because I do believe in my heart of hearts that somewhere in helping people in that space is where I'm meant to be. And so I'm not doing anything to get there, but I am very, very I'm very, very positive that the doors are going to keep opening. And some of the opportunities that I have gotten through my breast cancer diagnosis, and knowing people like you and giving me a platform like this to share my story is, for me, just a little notch in that door opening for me. So I really appreciate that. And this was a very big glimmer for me.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Life and Death podcast. Please be sure to leave us a review and comment to let us know what you thought of the episode. And don't forget to follow us so you never miss an update. You can email us at lifeanddeathpodcast@gmail.com. You'll find Genna on Instagram under the handle Genna Marie Life Coaching, and I, Noelle, can be found at Noelle E. Carlin.
Living death through ups and downs, finding smiles beyond the frowns.